with another edition of Perspectives from the Sky on this 18th day of February 2023. You'll be hearing from the two of us today, from me, Leo Knighton Tallarico, and from Deborah Knighton Tallarico. Pretty much she'll be talking most of the second half of this show. And then we'll get together, the two of us, to have just a little chat close to the end before we say goodbye for another couple of weeks. So, God, when did we start the show? I think it was 2020, I believe. End of 2020. Maybe Deb, see if Deb knows. Do you remember when we started the show, Deb?
Actually, I'm not sure. I think it was 2020, but I'm not sure.
What was it you said? When?
It might have been 2020, the end of 2020.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah.
I think it was the end of 2020 when the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, close to that time, because that's when
it was before
my
that.
estimation. Before that even. Okay.
I think so, because I think you wanted to have the show before that important conjunction. And
I think you're right.
To get the word out.
Thanks, Deb.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, you know, to me, the Age of Aquarius started on winter solstice, 2020. Other astrologers love different times. It just seemed like a message from the universe that something like a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0+ degrees of Aquarius would happen on a winter solstice after an election that was kind of important as the Trump years ended, though caused a lot of culture war type arguments, more than arguments, you know, on January 6th, not too long after I said the winter solstice started the Age of Aquarius, on January 6th, 2021, is when the Capitol got invaded. Because some people thought that the election had been illegitimate, rigged. And I know that group of people, there were threats toward Vice President Pence about hanging him, and threats against Pelosi, Speaker of the House Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi. So it was a pretty dangerous time and kind of unique in our American history for something like that to happen. I don't think anything happened that drastically in a culture war since the Civil War itself. Sometimes it feels like that, doesn't it, everybody? Kind of like a civil war is brewing in this country. Want to talk about something that takes us back to the beginning of the culture war, or at least symbolically the beginning of the culture war, though it's been going on for a long time. Just didn't come out in the open as much until eclipse season of 2017, summer 2017. In August, there were two very powerful eclipses. One was Aquarius Leo, early August, and the other one was a lunar eclipse in Aquarius, Sun in Leo. And then the second one happened late in August, and it was a solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, which is even more powerful. And something especially pertinent is that it traveled, it traveled across the United States. That was its path, that solar eclipse. And usually where the path is has a lot to do with where some of the events will happen that surround the eclipses. But most importantly is what happened during that time and the degrees of the eclipses that happened at that time. I want to get into that. So one of the things that happened is there was in Charlottesville, Virginia, there was a protest against the taking down of a Confederate statue, I believe. And so the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers and white supremacist groups were protesting that. And then there were counter protests on the other side. Black Lives Matter, things like that on the other side were protesting, from my memory. But it was really an ugly scene. I remember President Trump got on the air during that time and said, "Oh, there's good people on both sides," something like that, that got everybody upset. And, all the investigations about January 6th are into how much did Trump have to do with what happened. And, that's still not settled in court. So a woman actually got run over that day too in Charlottesville, Virginia. Do you remember that? And died. A woman got run over by a car. And then that same month, there's a big deal with North Korea and Trump, and about him with his missiles, and Trump trying to threaten him, but then they were both kind of macho strutting with each other for a lot of that month, but it felt dangerous to a lot of people with nuclear weapons that North Korea does have now. So one of the reasons I'm bringing that up is the lunar eclipse was at 15 degrees of Aquarius, and the solar eclipse was at 28 plus degrees of Leo. What happens in astrology is when there's important events that happen, and then you see where the planets were, or where the eclipses were in this case, the degrees and the signs, you then get a sense later of when whatever those events were about are going to be triggered when new eclipses or new transiting planets get to those same degrees again. So in this case, we're looking at fixed signs, because on that first one, 15 degrees of Aquarius, meaning Sun in Leo, Moon in Aquarius, at the lunar eclipse full moon, when that part of the chart is triggered, meaning Aquarius, Leo at around between 14 and 16 degrees, but also all the fixed signs. That's a fixed sign. Leo and Aquarius are fixed signs. So it also includes Taurus and Scorpio. So when anything comes to that place again, 14 to 16 degrees of any of those signs, there's a good chance that something will be triggered, especially something that has to do with what was happening back then. Those are important reasons. Let me go further. Let's start with the 28 degrees of fixed signs. 28 degrees Leo and Aquarius in that back that are Leo. So that takes in Aquarius, and it takes in Scorpio, and it takes in Taurus. 28 degrees. I've been astounded by the number of countries and people who have something between 27 and 29 degrees of fixed signs. Also, and I'll weave how this works too. Also, when Roswell happened in July of 1947, the eclipses right before that were at those same degrees. We're at that same degree, 28 degrees of Taurus was a solar eclipse back then, right before Roswell. The stock market of the United States from 1792, when it was brought up, the sun is at almost 28 degrees of Taurus. These countries, North Korea, USA, which has its moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius, Israel, its Mars at 28 degrees of Leo, Trump, his Mars, like 27 degrees of Leo, Biden, his Sun and Venus, 28 degrees of Scorpio, Kamala Harris, her Saturn, 28 degrees, I'm talking exact, 28 degrees of Aquarius. And then we've also got China, Russia, Ukraine, Pakistan, all fit into either the 28 degrees of fixed signs or that 15 degrees of fixed signs. So here are some times to look at around all this. The month of February and early into March, as Saturn right now is just at 2759 of Aquarius, so it's going to go 28 of Aquarius real soon, like tomorrow. And it'll be in the 28s for a while, for a few weeks, up into early March. So we got the February, March time. Then in April and May, the solar eclipse is at 28 degrees of a cardinal sign, which is Aries, 29 degrees actually, but it'll make a very close trine to that 28 degrees of Leo. The lunar eclipse will be at 15 degrees of fixed signs, Taurus and Scorpio. China, for instance, it's Mars, which is conjunct Pluto in its natal chart. It's right at that 15 degrees. I already told you North Korea is at the 28 degrees, right? And then, so you got the solar eclipse at 28, you got the lunar eclipse at 15 fixed. In July, Mars will be at that 28 degrees of Leo, which is exactly where Israel's Mars is at. Venus will station in late July at 28 degrees of Leo. Station means when a planet stations, it means whatever direction it's going in, it stops and then goes in the other direction. So it'll be going retrograde at that time in late July. In August, Jupiter, which has been in Aries for a long time, will move into Taurus. And then in August, September, will stop at 15 degrees of Taurus. When a planet stops, where it stops at is very important, where it changes directions at. It's like a highlighted energy at the time that it's changing directions. And then November, also very importantly, Mars will be at 28 degrees of Scorpio. So these are times to watch. And the things to watch are what happens with North Korea, China during these first 5 or 6 months of the year, or from February through the rest of the 6 months, first 6 months. USA, which has its moon at 27 degrees of Aquarius. Israel, 28 degrees of Leo. I already went down Biden, Kamala, the stock market, China, Russia, Ukraine, Pakistan, all have important planets. And one of those two, especially the 28 degree one. And don't forget that the culture war began at that solar eclipse at 28 degrees of Leo. So you can expect big shifts to happen around the culture war, around the China-North Korea issues, around Russia-Ukraine. And then, but also interestingly, Biden and Kamala Harris have planets there. Saturn for Kamala and Venus and the Sun for Joe Biden. So I know that starting these next 4 or 5 months and then the rest of the year, there's going to be big changes around those two and what happens. I personally think that there's going to be a change of presidency that's going to happen before the next election. I think Kamala Harris is going to be president of the United States before the election actually happens in 2024. I don't know how that's going to happen, but somehow I believe that will happen. The culture war is going to blow up bigger. I expect China to either more seriously threaten to invade Taiwan or actually probably will invade Taiwan. North Korea is going to get involved too. Our world is really changing rapidly, the world out there, aligned with the Age of Aquarius. These changes would not happen unless the way things are now would be shaken up and disrupted. The forms, the institutions, the structures of our world have to change, have to transform in order for this new world to come in. Diversity within unity, equality. Equality. Do you realize how this world is set up between the rich and the poor? It's people don't talk about it as much as they used to, but my God, it's horrible. There can be that many people that are billionaires and then people starving. How can that be? What kind of system have we set up to make that way? The system needs to be changed. And I'm not going to promote communism, socialism necessarily. I'm just saying it's got to change for more equality. Lack of equality causes more crime. I mean, you know that, don't you? When some people are poor, there's going to be more crime. There's going to be more drugs. There's going to be more overdoses because people have a hard time handling life that way. And don't call them wimps. It's not easy to be poor. It's not easy to live in squalor like some people actually do. So we need a change in this world. And a change is coming. Big changes are coming. Does that mean that a lot of us are going to need to be uncomfortable for a while? Yeah, most likely. There's going to be discomfort to the kind of changes that are coming. But they're necessary, everybody. They're necessary. I'd say over these next couple of years, life's going to change quite a bit. A lot of it is really good. How about those of you that listen to this show? Aren't there a lot of you that have tuned into new realities? Have started looking around, you see synchronicities everywhere. You see the connections between things that there's meaning to everything. There's meaning to everything. This is a sacred journey that we're on, a sacred soul journey that's extremely deeply meaningful if you're looking for that. If you've been programmed into the cultural view, everything is about how much money you have, what kind of home you have. Those are important things, but when they're elevated to the most important thing in life, then the needs of the soul and the needs of spirit don't get addressed. And a lot of you are addressing that. And you are seeing the connections, and you are seeing the synchronicities, and you are making friends with others who see things in the same way. And you do know that you live in a meaningful universe. And you do know that there's a way of leading your life that is sacred. Deborah, I'm sure we'll talk about some of that during her time. She's very connected with the ceremony and rituals and what it takes to lead a sacred life. The feminine on this earth and in this country. In the 60s and 70s, we made a lot of change, but hasn't gone far enough in my estimation. And the feminine is just ripping through the veil to be stronger and stronger in our world, in our souls, in our hearts, in life. The idea that life is sacred, meaningful, that everything is connected, that love runs the universe. These are things we need back in our life in a stronger way as part of the transformation into the Age of Aquarius. And it's happening. It can't be stopped. But the more that there's resistance to it, the uglier things are going to be. We need the change. We need to let this world underneath the world keep pushing up, veils lifted. See what's underneath the surface that's wanting to be born, that's wanting to grow, that's wanting to live, that's good for our new world. And that's why we watch the other things fall apart as that's growing. Diversity within unity. That means there's no more empires and superpowers. That means we're developing more of a multipolar world. And a lot of what's going on in the world has got to do with that multipolar world wanting to surface the sense of equality. No one any better or worse than anyone else. Do you realize in the UN, this is about all the nations in the world. Have you ever looked at that? There's a Security Council. Russia, United States, China, France, England, I believe. That's the Security Council. If they veto something, if it's been passed overwhelmingly in the body of the United Nations, if any of those 5 countries veto it, it's dead. Even if the vote was 300-2, it's dead. They can veto everything, anything. And what do they all have in common? The wealthiest and nuclear weapons. The wealthiest and the most powerful run the world. Is that fair? Why shouldn't the other countries have equal voice in this world, even though they don't have a nuclear weapon? What does it tell everybody that's a nation that doesn't have a nuclear weapon? What's the message? Get a nuclear weapon if you want to be heard, if you want to have any power in this world. Get yourself a nuclear weapon. You take a look at North Korea, you take a look at Iran. Do you realize what that's about? It's about their countries that say, we have no voice, we have no power, we need more money, we need nuclear weapons, especially the nuclear weapons. We need to change the system. We need to get rid of nuclear weapons. Those nuclear weapons are going to blow us up if we don't change this world fast. Somehow I believe that the other beings, UFO, alien, has to do with all that. A lot more people are believing that. Again, back to 1947, Roswell, solar eclipse, 28 degrees of Taurus, fixed signs, 27 to 29 degrees, was there again. I believe that as we become more destructive in our world, these other beings are going to be here. Really. I remember back when I interviewed on our radio show, Deborah and I, Renaissance Radio Hour, back in Santa Fe, the early 2000s, on public radio in Santa Fe. And I remember one of the guests was Dr. John Mack, who at the time was head of psychiatry at Harvard University. I know I've said that before, maybe I've said it on the air, but I'm going to say it again. Interviewed him, and he said that he had heard about people being abducted by aliens and brought onto spaceships and all that, and he laughed. He thought it was crazy. He's a psychiatrist, head of psychiatry. He says, "Oh, boy, there's people crazy all across this world that they think they've been abducted and brought off into ships." So he interviews these people all across the globe. His book, Passport to the Cosmos, I think it's called, one of his books. Also, if you go up on Facebook and you look at Dr. John Mack, you'll see my interview of him on the Facebook page, or even on his institute, John Mack Institute. You can hear the interview from back then. And so he went and interviewed people all over the earth and found out that it was real. He started believing it was real because they all had very similar stories to one another. They couldn't have known each other. One in China, one in Alabama. They didn't know each other, but yet they had similar stories. And one of the ingredients that was true for most of the interviews that he did was that the aliens, other beings, ETs, whatever word you want to use, believed that we were destroying our world, our climate, and more importantly, even nuclear weapons. And so I believe, and others I've read that believe the same thing, and that's that when that gets to be really dangerous, like it's about to happen, or maybe it just did happen in a minor way, they'll show themselves. They will show themselves. That's what that's what I believe. So don't you find that amazing about Dr. Mack? And when he interviewed people and he found out that it was real, and when he was on the show, it was like, okay, so it was either they really saw these aliens and they really saw these ships that they were brought on, but some, it was from other dimensions that they were making the contact. But he knew it was real for them. And he wrote these books, subsequently wrote these books. He ended up dying, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, walking across the street, and I think it was London or Paris. I think Paris, maybe. London. Okay. But he was a hell of a guy. You got to listen to some of those interviews by me, other people that interviewed him. You'll be astounded at what he had to say. So let me look at what's coming up sooner, and then we're going to turn it over to Deb. So today, the sun goes into Pisces at 3:34 p.m. Mountain Time. So 5:34 p.m. Eastern, 2:34 p.m. Pacific. So right after this show, not long after this show, the sun will move into Pisces. And then Sunday overnight into Monday, like 1:06 a.m. into Monday, there'll be a new moon in Pisces. And then later on Monday, Venus will move from Pisces to Aries. So there's a mixed message there a little bit. So you all understand about Pisces, don't you? It's the last month of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, which is where we live, that are listening to the show. And so, and as far as the zodiac goes, pretty much most of us astrologers believe that energetically Aries springtime, when things start, and then they move around, and then Pisces is the last of the year and the last sign. And Pisces is interesting that way. A lot of actors and actresses have strong Pisces influence or strong Neptune or 12th house, which are all the same vibration, so to speak. And the reason is because Pisces has a little bit of every other sign in it. It's, as we're discussing it now, it's the last of the signs before Aries. Aries is one pointed, let's go for it. And Pisces is flowing and open to everything. And so as being open to everything, it picks up, the energies of everything around it. It's so sensitive, especially like a moon in Pisces, as Deborah has. I don't think she minds me saying that. They can pick up the energies of the emotions of everyone around them, anything around them. I'm a sun in Pisces, by the way, but the moon in Pisces is even more sensitive, I believe. And so it's that time of year now. So it's good to go with the flow as much as you can, to not be very one-pointed with things, not too much of an agenda. It's a good healing month, generally speaking. Surrender time is good for Pisces. Pisces is good with let go and let God kind of a thing. Let go and let the universe. Trust more. That's why a lot of Pisces, people with Pisces energy will be told by other people that they're lazy or unmotivated or something of that nature, because they go with the flow. And we live in a world that says you got to get out there, kick butt, make money, win the game. So a lot of Pisces energies aren't going to do that. They're going to kind of just, go with the flow. People call them passive or they call them lazy, but it's just their way. So the poets, the dreamers, Pisces, that time of year, let go. Do some healing work on yourself. Do some deep meditation. Do spiritual soul work. Do things that enrich your soul. Get more involved in music, which is very Piscean too. More in art, also very Piscean. Get involved in those things and then get ready for the end of March, which will have much more energy to it. But before we get to the end of March, Saturn moves into Pisces on the 7th of March, and we'll stay there for about 2.5 years. The USA, by the way, will have their Mars return on the 6th of March. And then we move into more energy. On the 21st, on the 20th is the equinox, spring equinox. And then right after, on the 21st, we have our first of 2 Aries new moons. So, and that's not usual. So there's going to be a lot of more action than normal starting after the 20th and 21st. On the 25th is an important time too, because Mars will finally leave Gemini, and enter Cancer. Mars has been in Gemini since October, I believe. It's been there all these months, and will be going back direct, like I said, on the 25th of March. Actually, it went retrograde in October. It actually started in Gemini before that. Let's see. Actually, I don't have it right in front of me. I guess I did. It actually went into Gemini back in August. Back in August. Then it went retrograde at the end of October. So it's been in Gemini since August. And finally, at the end of March, it goes back into Cancer. So if you've been spending a lot of time in your head, and things that feel scattered sometimes up in your mind, hard to focus, energy like you would like to, that's in large part because Mars has been in Gemini. Gemini is like that. It can be all over the place, scattered up in its head. A lot of good things, good for learning, good for communicating, good for education. But it also has the tendency to be, all over the place intellectually and scattered a bit sometimes. So it goes out finally in late March. goes into Cancer. Mars in Cancer is much more. Mars is not that comfortable in Cancer, but it's more of a nurturing sign. So the male energy is going to be in, at least for a month or so while it's in Cancer, feeling more of a need to take care of itself, to be nurtured. And then wow, on April 20th, now powerful time is here. First Aries new moon, already beginning to get us out, doing things, more active. The second one is at 29 plus degrees of Aries. It'll be conjunct Jupiter, which will be at about 24, 25 degrees of Aries. And most importantly, it'll be square Pluto, which has just, at that time, will have just recently, like in March, gone into Aquarius, where it'll stay, even though it goes back into Capricorn for a little while this year and for a little while next year. Pretty much for the next over 20 years, Pluto will be in Aquarius, and it'll make a square to that Aries new moon. And that's going to be a powerful time for change, for things shaking up, for new beginnings, and probably some of the things out in the world, that we're not looking forward to necessarily, are going to be happening around that time. The very next day, Mercury goes retrograde. And by the way, I'm mentioning that especially because everything has been direct for a while now. And that'll be the first planet to go retrograde in about 3 months, will be when Mercury goes retrograde on April 21st. And then there's a powerful lunar eclipse on May 5th. And that one will be at that 15 degrees. Remember, we'll get the 29 degrees. The solar eclipse will connect with the 29 degrees, 28 degrees. And that lunar eclipse in Scorpio will connect with that 15 degrees of fixed signs. So if you have planets in Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, either between 14 and 16 degrees of those signs, or between 27 and 29 degrees of those signs, you will be especially involved in transformation of your personal life. So if you don't know about where your planets are, find out. Talk to someone who does astrology. Call me, Solus, Soulus, at AOL.com. I'll help you through it. So let's see. Do I have anything else I need to say today? I think we've got it. So remember, this coming week, Pisces, for a few weeks, winter, end of winter. Time to lay back. Time to go with the flow as much as you can. No strong agendas. Let things happen. It's against the grain of how you're taught by the culture and maybe your family, but it'll be good for your soul. And it's good too, because if you can get that kind of healing, when things really pick up in energy, starting late March and through April and May, your soul and your heart and your body will be in much better shape for all the energy that's going to be coming to us at that time. All right, that's enough of me. Let's talk to someone much lovelier than me. Let's bring on Deborah Knighton Tallarico. Deborah, you ready? Yeah? Okay. So here comes Deb. Hi, Deb.
Hey there.
When you get off. Yeah.
It looks like I'm a little thing in the corner now.
Yeah, how did that happen? I'm going to get off the screen so you're not a little thing in the corner. How the heck did that happen?
Isn't that funny? I have no idea. Usually it's split screen.
Exactly. I don't know how that happened. If I would have known before we started, I would have changed it. Anyway, you're going to have the whole screen right now, and then maybe we'll talk for the last few minutes. You can do a meditation too, I hope.
I will. I'll leave some time for us to talk at the end too in a meditation.
Okay. Sounds good, hon. Here's Deborah.
Hey, everyone. So I'm just going to kind of follow through after Leo's sharing of everything going on. And as many of you may know who know me, a lot of the focus of my work, besides being a therapist and healer, psychotherapist and healer, is really focusing on bringing the divine feminine back to our planet, and so that there's more balance on our planet, because there's been such a imbalance, and the feminine energies are needing to come back now. So I often focus on that when I talk. So today I just wanted to talk about this. Leo already started to talk about moving into Pisces time of year. And right now it's the dark of the moon. So I wanted to talk about the moon and Venus, which are the more feminine planets. The sun and Mars are more masculine. And then the outer planets have both masculine, feminine. And ultimately, it is the union and the sacred marriage of the masculine feminine that is most important, really. But for that to happen, we also need to bring back and restore the sacred feminine on the earth, because it's been in hiding, so to speak, for many, many years, in hiding and oppressed and suppressed for thousands of years, actually. So this is a very potent time on our planet where the divine feminine is rising and getting more powerful. And I'm going to talk more about that with what's coming up in the cycle of Venus. But right now, so we have the dark of the moon, as Leo talked about. It's the very end, the last 2 days before the new moon, over midnight. It's like midnight Sunday night into early Monday morning, depending on where you are. And so the dark of the moon is like, the very end of the cycle. And it's where it's dark. The moon isn't visible in the sky. So it's like the void, the dark void energy. It's known as a more prophetic time when it's a dark moon, because there isn't light. It's more going inward. And what I have found, like clockwork, from working with the cycles of the moon for over 40 years of my life, it's just been part of my life to really be attuned to that cycle. It's a time to release and let go. And what I've noticed is that the dark of the moon, the last couple days of the moon, things will come up from my unconscious: fears, unresolved issues, things from my unconscious that need to be cleared, cleansed, maybe healed. Maybe there's healing that is needed. So the dark of the moon is a really good time to just honor maybe going within. I usually don't plan big things around the dark moon before the new moon, because it's a time to retreat and to really honor that. And it's a great time to do ceremonies of releasing, like letting go, burning something that you're letting go of. So really tune into, as this lunar cycle comes to an end before the new lunar cycle, what is it that you're shedding? What are you releasing and letting go of from this last 28-day cycle, so that you can feel the new energies to have a clean slate? So a ceremony to let go, taking a warm hot bath to let go of the old, because there's many ways to release ceremonially: with fire, with burning things that you're releasing, writing things down that you're releasing, a bath where you're releasing, maybe with Epsom salt and salts and baking soda and oils that help you release and purify yourself. Being in the earth, laying on the earth, and just letting the old energies go into the earth is another way too. So you can work with the different elements. And when you burn things, it's kind of the fire and the air too. So that's something you can do at this dark moon. And as Leo said today, I love Pisces time of year, of course, because I have moon in Pisces, and so many of my friends are Pisces, and it's that more mystical energy. Also, Pisces has a lot to do with love, like a bigger kind of love, like almost like the Christed Magdalene kind of love of humanity, and like an altruistic love and oneness and like really honoring the oneness and unity. So the new moon, so we're moving into the new moon in Pisces. And so as Leo already talked about, those energies will be really strong as the sun and moon join together in Pisces at the very beginning of Pisces. So really allow yourself to, as Leo said, surrender and enter the mysteries. But what's interesting, and I know Leo and I've had conversations about this before, how a lot of people with Pisces who are Pisces also have Aries, and there's that combination of Aries and Pisces, and there's such different energies. And we're kind of having that a little bit now too, because less than an hour after we have the new moon in Pisces, Venus leaves Pisces and moves into Aries, as Leo mentioned, which is such a different energy. So Venus in Aries is a much more like warrioress energy, fiery energy. I think of the swords or the wands in the tarot, but the swords of truth. It's truth telling. So it's Venus, which is, the feminine, moving into that energy of empowerment. And what I want to talk about, and someone just said, Black Moon, Lilith, and Eris are also in Aries. So that adds to the energies of the feminine in Aries. And so another thing to add to that, in the cycle of Venus, which I've been working with ceremonially in a group with Venus Alchemy for the last 4 years or so, in the cycle of Venus, every month we move into a new gateway where when the moon and Venus join together, and Venus has a large 19-month cycle, and it's very much connected to the ascent and descent of the ancient Sumerian goddess Inanna, who actually is also Venus. And many believe that actually the myth of Inanna was very connected to the cycle of Venus, because it's so much like the cycle of Venus. So because Venus rises, and all the planets do this too, by the way, in a synodic cycle, but this happens to really correspond with the gateways of Venus in that cycle. So, Inanna, Venus descended the underworld, and that's when the moon and Venus conjunct each other in the morning sky, and it's during the waning moon. And then Venus is in the underworld, meaning she's not visible. And then she comes and rises into the evening sky and joins with the moon for a gateway during the waxing moon. So this Wednesday, really early in the morning after midnight, the moon and Venus are going to join together in Aries. And that's going to mark a new gateway of Venus. We're in the womb and sacral gateway right now, and we're going to be leaving that on Wednesday and moving into the solar plexus gateway in Inanna's ascent. And if you look into the evening sky right now, it's really important to not just know this intellectually, but to actually see and feel the energies of the planets in the sky and allow them to bring their codes, their energies into you. And if you look into the western sky just after sunset, it's just been spectacular seeing Venus so bright with Jupiter above Venus. I've been watching this for the last week or so, and it's going to get even more powerful because this day, on Wednesday, if you look into the evening sky, you're going to see the very thin crescent moon. So you have to catch it. You don't wait too long after sunset. You'll see the crescent moon with Venus and Jupiter. And then the next week on March 1st, Venus and Jupiter are going to conjunct. So you're going to see them in the sky. So Jupiter and Venus are going to be getting closer and closer in the sky. But Wednesday, pay attention to seeing those three together in the sky. And then the week after, on March 1st, seeing Jupiter and Venus really close together in Aries. So I think it's very significant that they're in Aries. And because, as we've been talking, it's the rise and the empowerment of the divine feminine. So And that is so important right now. And those are going to be some of the energies this week as we move into the solar plexus gateway. And the solar plexus gateway for all of us, it's the solar plexus is the place of empowerment. The solar plexus is, like the sun shining. It's our power center. And in the divine feminine tradition, it's the power center of the goddess. And it's also where our self-confidence is, feeling free to express our authentic self. It's also, trusting our gut instincts, because that's the belly, the solar plexus, trusting our gut instincts, our intuition in our belly. And also it's our will center. And also, our fire, our digestive fire in Ayurveda, that's the Agni. So I'm not going to talk too much more about that because I wanted to share some cards I pulled for all of us for this time right now. And before I do that, I just want to emphasize, the importance of when we move from the sacral into the solar plexus to really honor your wholeness, that you are whole and complete onto yourself. That's very much of the empowerment, that you're whole. I am that I am is very Aries energy. So it's like the Aries and the solar plexus combining together. And then also the Pisces. So there's that different energies that we're balancing right now because we're going into the dreamy time of year with the Aries also there. So it's going to kind of be a balance of those. So I pulled some cards for right now. And one of the cards I pulled was this one, which is Trust the Niggle. And this is in the, what is this called? Work Your Light Oracle by Rebecca Cannon. And this card is about trusting your gut instincts. It's so aligned with the sacral chakra gateway. So this right now, just really listen within. If there's something that's niggling at you, trying to get your attention, trying to get you to make a change, really listen to that right now. And then another card I pulled, which is also very aligned for all of us with this gateway, is boundaries, and how important it is right now to establish boundaries and to be able to say no and to honor when you need to say no, to take care of yourself. And that's part of our empowerment, is to be able to set boundaries. So that's very much of the Venus and Aries, the solar plexus gateway, is really honoring what's your truth with your and having boundaries around that. And then the last card from this deck was Mirror, and that one is all about just looking at whatever's triggering you in your life, anything that's emerging in relationships or in the world that's triggering anything inside of you, to look at it as a mirror. So what is this trigger reflecting back to me? Is this person reflecting a part of myself that I haven't loved? Is it reflecting a part of myself that I want to connect with more and bring out of myself? So it's looking deeper whenever we have a trigger in our life, as the universe is bringing us something to really look at and to see the divine reflection in. And then I got guided. I felt like, last time I only did 3 cards, but this time it felt really strong that I needed to pull some more cards. So this is the Rose Oracle. The cards are pretty hard to see, so I'll just put them up quickly. But this one is the Fertile Void. And these cards feel like guidance for this Pisces time, and this, the dark moon moving into the new moon in the Pisces, and this last month, this last sign of the zodiac before the spring, when all the energies start moving forward more. And this card is the fertile void, and to really allow yourself to be rejuvenated, to rest, to really, experience the winter, the last month of the winter before the spring. What do you need to do to really restore and regenerate yourself in the void, the darkness, the end of a cycle? What do you need to let go of? Because it is the end of the zodiac year. What is it that you're ready to let go of? And the next one was the bud. And this one is about starting to feel the buds that might be coming, the potential, the promise for this new year, for the springtime, and just really tuning into that. And this one I really loved. And this one is called The Codes of the Seeds. And this is a reminder to us that the codes of the seeds are right within us, and that we're a seed, and that the blueprint of who we are is already within us. And all we need to do is nurture that seed. And so at this time of the last sign of the zodiac before the equinox, to really be within. I'm just going to kind of pull these cards together to like really honor this last month of winter, just nurturing yourself, rejuvenating yourself, going into the void, into the darkness, into your inner world, and just really feel those seeds, that started sparking in Imbolc before we're planting them. What new things want to be born within you? But it's from feeling it inside your own soul and your own body, listening to your body, your nudges, your niggles, your gut instincts. What's moving and shifting inside of you? What do you need to let go of so that you can birth these new creations and be ready for spring, for the new life that's coming forth? So we're going to do just a short meditation now before Leo comes back on, at this dark moon, to as I said, the dark moon, and we're in the end of the womb sacral chakra gateway in the cycle of Venus. And the sacral chakra gateway is very much about all the emotions, because in our sacral chakras, we hold emotions, old experiences, relationships, cords of attachment. So at this dark moon, while we're in the sacral chakra gateway, what do you still need to release at this dark moon? What old emotional patterns, what old emotional energies do you need to release? So we're going to just do a little short meditation. And this is actually the bowl. This is the sacral chakra note, the womb gateway. And men also have a womb. So just feel into your sacral chakra now, which is between your belly button and the base of your spine. And just feel at this dark moon, this time of going within of the void. The moon is dark now. What is still there in your sacral? Any old emotions, fears, anything that no longer serves you on an emotional level? Any old attachments from relationships, any old cords that you might have with anyone else, and just feel what that is now in your sacral. And we're going to call to the dark moon mothers, the voidal mothers, to come forth and be with us. And when you receive what it is you want to release, just speak that to these voidal mothers, the dark moon mothers. whatever you're ready to release, and just hand it over to them. And you can continue to do that this weekend as the sun moves into Pisces, and then the moon moves into Pisces tomorrow, and then we have the new moon. Just spending time in your own inner space, in your soul, and just feeling in your sacral whatever's left, whatever remnants you need to release. And just let that go. And you can just, it can be easy and graceful. Just let it go to the dark moon mothers, to the voidal mothers, who that's their job, to help us to release what we no longer need. So that's it for now. I know we only have about 4 minutes left. Leo's going to come back on, but I just wanted to say, if anyone wants to reach me, you can reach me at Elilia, which is my spiritual name, E-L, it's down at the bottom of the screen, E-L-E-L-I-A, at Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. And you can also visit my website, Gaia Sophia, templeoftheheart.com. So, Leo, I don't know if you're coming back on. I don't know if we can have two of us here. I don't think, but we can still talk anyway.
Yeah, we can still talk, but I don't like you being so small.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, I didn't want to come back out of the meditation. I was hoping the meditation would actually go longer. When you said it's ending, I was still there.
But, I felt like I needed to bring us back because I
know that was good, but I enjoyed the meditation.
Yeah,
a lot. So here we go, Deb, into Pisces time. We both like that.
Yeah, and what did you think of that? That balancing of, the Pisces energy, and then because Mercury's also moving into Pisces, and then Saturn's moving into Pisces, but then we have that Venus
and Aries.
Yeah. So
well, that's good. What you started to say, it's good for the feminine being empowered. It's like Venus and Aries. Venus, as you said, and is so true. That's the feminine power, or that's the feminine energy. And when it was in Pisces, which was wonderful. Very, very caring and compassionate placement. But now it's time to come out of that watery place and to come up into the fire of Aries, and to stand, and doesn't mean warrior necessarily, although it is to a certain extent, but it's also just being in your strength, being true to yourself, not having to be nice all the time, but being able to say, I am, just like Aries is, like you said before, it's an I am placement. I am what I am. I'm true to myself. And the feminine does not have to be like it's so treated sometimes in our families and in the culture, like you got to be sweet and nice all the time. Come on.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's also, I always think of Aries as a sword of truth too. It's a truth teller.
Yeah.
And being able to, and like Christine said, and the card that came through, being able to set boundaries and say no. You don't always have to say yes to everything.
Right.
That's part of Aries. It's like, the sword. The sword is clarity and truth, and being able to discern and have boundaries and focus. And so that's, isn't that a lot of Aries too? Is that focus?
Absolutely. As a woman.
Yes.
Like, when you're a kid, I mean, they do tell you to be nice all the time.
To be nice all the time and say yes and be, and that's the thing, is I'm becoming more and more aware that I need to take care of myself.
Yes.
And fill my own cup before I can give. And for women, I think that's a big issue, because we're taught to give, and sacrifice ourselves in a lot of ways. So,
and the rising of the feminine is good for men too, because we're taught that we have to be tough all the time. And it's kind of nice, to let the feminine into our hearts and souls so that we can just be ourselves, which means sometimes you're sad. Sometimes you feel like crying. Sometimes you don't feel strong. You can't be strong all the time. Exactly. So the rising of the feminine helps everybody.
And actually, we all have a masculine and feminine within us.
Right.
So, every man has Venus in their chart. So it's
That is
all
right.
masculine, feminine. I know it's 1 hour now. So
Yeah, I guess we got to say goodbye. We'll be back in 2 weeks. What's that? The 4th of March, I believe.
March 4th, your brother's birthday,
That's right.
right
And
before your birthday.
don't tell anybody, but it's March 6th. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. See you
Much
all in a
love,
couple weeks.
everybody.
Bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Much love. Bye.
Much love.